whatever, please mute those so that the background noise isn't picking up. And then if you have any comments, you can feel free to unmute yourself when you need to speak. We're gonna start with Hans today. So Hans.
All right, and I remembered to unmute first. Yay! So we're here to talk about games in virtual training sessions. So we have a few demo games to do with you this afternoon. The first one is called Have You Ever? You're gonna get a series of yes or no questions to answer, and there'll be 6 total, and they're grouped in pairs. Each pair that we have, you're gonna have a set of gestures or movements or a zoom function to give us your response to the question. So it'll go slide by slide. The instructions for how you respond will be on the slide the whole time. The first question will appear, then the second question will appear, and then we'll talk about how the answers come in. So if everybody's ready, raise your hand. Put your hand up if you're ready. All right, let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, have you ever, in the chat window, you're gonna give us Y for yes or N for no. Have you ever binge watched an entire TV show or single season in one day? All right, we got some yeses and nos coming in. Those of you that did drop a yes in, let's see some names of those TV shows that you've binged or that you've loved and watched a whole bunch from. Let's see some names of some shows in there. Breaking Bad, Dexter, Fuller House, ooh, Black Lightning. I'm into those superhero shows. Once Upon a Time, Friends, no TV, Hazel, Saved by the Bell. Look at that, this is a wide range of crazy shows, I love it. Ooh, somebody listed 4, awesome. So there we go, so there's our Ozark, Criminal Minds, Handmaid's Tale. Ooh, we got some dark minds in here, I love that, I love that. Death in Paradise. Oh yeah, I'm into those British shows too. My wife and I like the mysteries. So yeah, we do Acorn. All right, Bewitched, Poirot. I gotta practice saying that in my French, a little French detective, Mr. from Belgium. All right, thanks for question 1. Let's get number 2. Getting a little crazier here. Have you ever cut or dyed your own hair? And we got a couple of yeses, no, capital no, both, nope, yes. All right, so if you have done this, let us know some of your hairstyles, what colors you did, and other stuff like that, so we can get to see what's happened. Or stick your head really close to the camera if it can reveal that. Okay, we have a bangs cutter, lemon juice to make it super blonde, really bad hairstyle, turned it red, turned it orange. This is great. Honey blonde. Sarah's got a really bad hairstyle. Ooh, an ammonia-based spray to turn it red. I hope you covered your eyes and your mouth when you did that one. Zip, took it all off. There you go, Claude. All right. Thanks for sharing in the chat there. We're going to move on to our next pair of questions. And for these questions, you're going to physically stand up or show us sign language by putting your 2 feet on your hand for standing up. And then a no response is by putting your hand up close to the screen and smash it, wave it, block the view. All right, so those are your 2 responses. Question 1 for that. Have you ever canceled a face-to-face training due to a pandemic? I have to make my gallery screen bigger so I can see what we got here. We got some hands waving, some standing up on your hand, someone physically, oh, we got jumping jacks going on in one window. That's great. All right. So yeah, who'd have thought we'd ever be dealing with pandemic cancellations before 6 months ago? All right. Thanks for your answers there. And question number 2, let me get the screen bigger again. Have you ever worried about what precautions you would need to take in order to keep your participants healthy or safe in a face-to-face training? So let me get my response window bigger and see. Got some hands standing up. I see some hands smashing, yeses and nos. And with trainings opened up again, this may be an answer that changes for a bunch of us pretty soon here. So, all right. So that was our second set. Thanks for your responses, everybody. And our last group of questions we're going to answer by using the poll function in Zoom. So you're going to see each individual question, and there goes the first one. Have you ever facilitated a training on racial injustice or anti-bias curriculum? Go ahead and say yes or no there to tell us. All right, we got a few yeses, some no's coming in. All right, more no's than yeses. Okay, so anybody that has, all right, we're gonna, if you can keep in mind, when we get done with the second question, we might ask those of you who said yes to share some training titles and other components that were part of that answer. So, all right, let's go on to the next question, please. Have you ever all right, you should be seeing a box that says, okay, nope, mine just reset, and I've still got the same question. Do we need to click something to get the next box to appear?
Bethany, it's not letting me pop up the next question.
Let me see if it's going to let me. Sorry, I ran through this and then of course I changed it.
Oops, I got it.
Okay.
All right, question 2. Have you ever participated in a public protest? So select yes or no. And that's about even the way my polls change. It looks almost like a horse race going there. Who's going to win? Who's going to win? All right, so we got about half and half people that have participated in a public protest. So, all right. So let's go back to the first question. Any of you that may have done a training on racial injustice or anti-bias curriculum, would you guys mind sharing either in the chat or unmute yourself and talk to tell us what the title of your training was? So we can hear some of those if you don't mind. All right. I see something about a face shield. I think that was for a previous question in the chat. All right, so if nobody wants to talk about that, feel free to also talk about if you attended a public protest. What was the protest that you attended? All right, we have one training, hiring without bias, as a training. Someone attended March for Science, and then an immigration rights and a social justice. Nancy went to one in high school too long ago to remember. I hear that, I hear that. Calhoun, you went to a Black Lives Matter very recently. All right, I Be Me and You Be Me was a training. March for immigration rights. All right. Okay. All right, everybody. Well, I really appreciate everybody sharing and participating in that component. And right now, if Gwen is able to unmute and talk, she's going to lead us in a bit of a debrief.
Yes. Can you see me and hear me? Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Hello, Linda Fowles. I haven't seen you in a long time. The benefit, we're going to talk about the benefits. And so the first question is, what are the benefits of doing a game like this in a training? So y'all want to share some of your thoughts on that?
You definitely
getting participants.
Yeah. Giving people the option to chat or talk, because some people may not feel comfortable talking in a group, even if it's a virtual group.
Yeah. So some of the things that Hans listed, some of the benefits were engages participants through movements and Zoom functions and reduces Zoom fatigue. We all know about that right now, right? The Zoom fatigue sets in after you've been on hours of these things. Helps them to connect and learn about others. So as you're posting in that chat box, I'm getting a little bit of insight into who you are and what you're about, which is really fun to find out about the trainers in our state. Another bullet point on here is the trainer can use it as an informal means to assess, knowledge check, to activate prior knowledge, and energize and transition. So I thought that opening up with the activity that we did, it kind of gave a little time for folks who slid in a little late. That was cool. And then this activity has brought some insight into who we all are, and then easily adapted to changing questions and responses. So can y'all, the next one is, what would you want to be mindful of when playing or doing this game in a training? So what are some cautions that you all can think of to doing it? Gloria.
Singling people out.
Pardon me?
I'm sorry, singling people out.
Yep.
I like that you make it where if you want to participate, you can.
Yep, that's good. So we got lots of things coming up in the chat.
Just to share with the with the poll feature in Zoom, there is a button that the host does have to set up the poll, and you can either set it up as one poll with multiple questions or multiple polls. But when you set it up, you can even click a button that says anonymous. So that way we cannot see who answers what. So the answers also can be anonymous in that way. Or you can make it unanonymous if you're trying to get data from your participants. So just to share a little bit about that poll feature within Zoom. And again, I believe it's a feature that's in all versions of poll or in Zoom.
Cool. Okay, some cautions are to be sure to provide options for all to participate. Sequence questions from light and fun to deeper and more complex. Make questions and instructions clear and visible to all, and consider how visible the responses will be to the questions if the questions are possibly more personal in nature. Would some feel more comfortable answering a question on video, or if the question is better asked in an anonymous group polling situation, as in our final two examples? So that's some stuff that had already been sort of covered. You are really smart today. But I'll hand it back to Hans. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm just going to ask any Zoom experts out there. Charlene Miles has a question about keeping a poll log available to hosts for future reference. Anybody know how to answer that one? Anybody in the group? Open the floor.
I did it this morning and it did not save results anywhere that I'm aware of. So if you're asking if it saves the results for you to reference back, I'm not aware of that. And or every time you have a new room, you have to reset up the poll questions. But in Zoom, it did kind of go to a different place to where it saved the questions, but I don't know how much it saves on the back end of it.
And I know the Zoom help page, when I've had to use it, has like videos and step-by-step instructions that even me, the clueless guy sometimes, found it easy to say, okay, what am I looking for? How can I learn to do it? So the Zoom help page is pretty strong in my opinion. So,
and there is a report area for whoever is the owner of the account. If you're one of the administrators, you can go into your reports and it will show you all of your past polls that you've done. And of course, in the past polls, the questions are there. So you can leverage just the reporting section in the admin panel.
Awesome. Thank you.
all right. Karen Bealey, you ready to roll with the next part?
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about using games in our breakout rooms on virtual trainings. Have you all ever used little icebreakers in your Zoom breakouts? That's no, yes, 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 no. Kind of have a combination of things going on here. Okay, so we'll talk about those. As we begin to pivot from face-to-face training to online training, a lot of people were even surprised to find out that you could do breakout rooms in a Zoom training. But when you do those, they look and they feel kind of different than they do in face-to-face. In a face-to-face training, usually you have a longer training, so you have more time for a breakout room, and you dismiss people to an area and they go in there, and typically what happens, the group will sit down and somebody will say, well, what are we doing? And well, I don't know. And maybe you have some handouts in the middle of the table that have questions or scenarios or whatever. And so somebody reaches in and gets those and starts to read it, and then they're kind of joining in the conversation. They're off and running. In a virtual breakout, a lot of times that doesn't happen. You send people into a breakout room. They don't typically have as long to come together and do the activity in a breakout room because your virtual trainings usually are going to be shorter, and they have less time to get in there and hit it and get it. But what might happen is they're in the breakout room and they're just kind of staring at each other in the little boxes. And so you don't want that to happen. The first time that I was in a breakout room on Zoom where they used an icebreaker, it went pretty well. It was at the beginning of the pandemic, and they said everyone grab something that helps you get through this time period. And a couple people grabbed their dog. I was one grabbing my dog, and somebody else grabbed a bottle of wine and so forth. And that kind of formed a connection there. And so when later on in the training, when they sent us back into the breakout rooms to do our actual content activity, people were connected. As people loaded into the breakout rooms, they were saying things like, oh, hi, there you are again, and smiling and everything. So you could tell people were much more comfortable being together after having that first little icebreaker activity. It takes a few minutes extra to provide for that. But when we actually had our content activity, everybody seemed more open to participate and join in. And sometimes you might have people just feel that they have to say something, and they say something very superficial. Well, after having the little icebreaker in the breakout room, it seems like people dug a little deeper in their comments and so forth. Also, if you have someone who's very introverted or shy, that person in a large group can kind of hide and maybe not participate if they don't want to or whatever. But when you throw them into a small group, like a breakout room on Zoom, they don't have that opportunity to hide away. And so they can feel very uncomfortable. And if they have that opportunity just to get to feel more connected, that can help them. And then when you go into your content activity, they too probably will be more apt to join in. And so whenever you dismiss people to a breakout room, you always want to make sure that you give them good instructions so they know exactly what they're doing. If people need to prepare in some way ahead of time, you want them to know that so they don't feel put on the spot. Just like we sent an email to all of you all to think about your favorite children's book. So that was easier than, you know, when you got in the breakout room, putting everybody on the spot, like, oh dear, what's my favorite children's book? So let people know ahead of time. If you have a facilitator, that's good. If you can have someone to be in there and keep things moving along, make sure they know what's expected, how much time there will be, they have clear instructions. And if your activity is going to be kind of involved with a lot of instructions, you have that on your PowerPoint, they're not going to be able to see the PowerPoint in the breakout room. So you might have people take a picture with their phone, so they have that in front of them, or your facilitator may have that on a page that she can do on her screen share. You don't want people getting in there and forgetting what it is that they're going to do or what kind of game they're going to play or whatever. And so we are going now to move to our breakout rooms for the little activity of sharing your favorite children's book. So you'll have a minute or so to tell what your favorite is and what it is that you like about it. and get to know the people in your little group.
We were still talking.
Yeah, okay.
It's okay.
Sorry, Xenia, you got cut off.
We had a good time.
You guys ripped us out of a compelling conversation.
I'm sorry. Welcome back. Okay.
Well, I saw the timer going down, but I thought we would have like a few seconds after that.
So it's trainer connect and reconnect.
Sorry.
Yeah, we had to cut some things off too.
Yeah. It's kind of like getting your eyebrows waxed. You just ripped it right on off.
Okay. So, how did that feel for you all? Being in a little breakout room, having an activity with people that maybe you don't know. Did that make you feel a little more connected to those people?
Yeah. Very comfortable. It was very comfortable.
Good.
And
Any other thoughts? Do you
I like the be able to meet other people from different regions. So I like that part of it, of the breakout room.
So that's something to think about when you're putting people in a breakout. You know that some people, when you go to a face-to-face, sometimes you often want to sit with your group and you may not necessarily venture out with others. When you're in a virtual breakout, you can actually get close to others that live all the way across the state or wherever, you know, maybe more so in that situation. Do you feel like, having gone through a little icebreaker, that if you were given some neat content activity to do, you might more easily be able to dig into that and work with others on that in a richer, deeper way, since you know them a little better?
Yes.
Okay. Any other thoughts about this?
Karen, my group was talking a little bit, and they liked the fact that they knew what was going to happen, that they were prepared with the book. And then I think that just made conversation a little easier. Once we shared that, we were able to talk about other things too. So
yeah, we did too. We had a little extra time and we went on to talk about, actually we got into talking about the technology challenges that some of us feel, and some people are comfortable with that right now and some people aren't, and yet right now our world is moving into the virtual with the pandemic, and so we've all had to learn a lot of new things. So how do you all feel about this? Do you think that if you were doing an online training and you had breakout rooms, you might want to go ahead and maybe do a little icebreaker before you sent those people there to work? Any?
Karen, I think that if you are used to doing an in-person class, there are times in your in-person instruction where you can see magic happening. And that magic might happen when we're able to get up and get in group number 1, 2, 3, and 4. I know that I've been in very engaging trainings with Hans and Dom before. And when we were able to get, 3 and 4 of us together, it was a little bit of magic happening. So you should do the best that you can do to create some sort of a magic virtually. And these breakout rooms are doing that. The other thing is to kind of provide a way for people to stay connected to each other even after the session, which I know we have our Facebook group and things like that. But sometimes if you create a way, if, I really connected with 1 or 2 people, that I could just, get with those 2 people afterwards and then take the conversation forward offline. So I think creating the virtual magic is the key. And you have to be very thoughtful on how you do that with technology.
Yeah, and I know Wanda Jean has a lot of experience with that. And I think when we started moving to virtual sessions, that was kind of an undertone. How do you keep that magic in there? How do you keep it, make it as good as it felt at face-to-face trainings and move that into virtual? And it is a challenge. And so one of the ways that you can kind of keep it fun and keep people connected and maybe at least sprinkle a little that magic is to use games and activities to connect people. So I guess we need to move on, and I need to give this to Bambi now so she can do her thing.
Okay, give me just a second. I'm going to have to share my screen here. Well, that's not it. I apologize. Okay, so can you all see my table here with my nice Dicebreaker debrief? Okay, so games are not just good for icebreakers. They can also be good as a debrief. So I'm going to demonstrate one today called Dicebreaker Debrief. And you can do this a couple of ways virtually. One, you can set it up so that they can see a screen. Now I'm using a tablet on my kitchen table, and I have brought, do you see it, my own dice here, so that you all can actually see me roll. The other thing that you could do is you could actually have your participants bring a dice to the virtual meeting and then show them the question. So I want you all to look at these 6 questions. These are the questions that we're going to look at. I'm going to roll the dice. And then I'm actually going to pick somebody that I can see. I can't see everybody on my screen, but hopefully I'm not calling anybody out that doesn't want to be called out, because you can see the questions, and you can either type your answer in the chat box or unmute yourself. So I'm going to start with Becky Sloan, because we talked back in our breakout room and she said she would volunteer for me. So,
Hi there.
oh, can you see the dice? It is a 6. I'm not sure why you all can't see that, but it's a 6. So Becky, how will you apply what you learned today to a future training?
I think that I will do more training with Zoom by myself. May have to bring Hans in with me, so I know what I'm doing when I do these trainings. But I'm liking this a lot, and I think using the breakout sessions was a lot of fun. Being able to talk about our favorite books was awesome. So go Shel Silverstein.
Yes, we had 2 that love Shel Silverstein, so that was kind of neat. But 2 different books. Mm-hmm. So let's see. So I can see April, so I'm going to call her out because I know that she's a colleague of mine and she won't hate me tomorrow. Uh-oh, can you see it? It's a 4. So your question is, share a game that you have used or have played in a training.
Well, obviously I've used all of these that we were working on today. I was saying, I did share in my group, we were talking about other ways to use breakout rooms for games. And I did share with them that during one of my regional meetings, we used it to play a game that was kind of like name that tune or name the song. And our supervisor gave us some clues, and then she sent us all to breakout rooms in pairs, and we had to come up with what we thought the song was, and then we came back to the whole group and typed in our answer, and people got points for picking the song. And it was just kind of something fun to do to break up a meeting that we were having on a Zoom meeting. So
okay, well, that's neat. Okay, so let's try something different here. So down at the bottom of everybody's screen, there should be a button that says reactions. On that, there should be what you see as a hand clapping. So if you're willing to answer a question for me after I roll the dice, would you please hit that hand, that clapping hand, so that I know who would be willing to do that for me? Okay, I've got one on my screen. So Phoenix, you are up. Are you ready? Can you see it? It's a 2. So you will answer, what was your favorite virtual game that we played today?
I don't know. I guess this one.
This one? Okay. All right. Awesome. Thank you. Let me see. Does anybody else give me that clapping hand? Oh, I saw somebody as I scrolled away. Okay, Jennifer. And it says Jennifer KY. So if we have more than one Jennifer, that's who I'm talking to. Okay, and this will be our last one. So question 6. We've already had a question 6. So let's pull another number. 3. Describe a good idea that you heard today.
A good idea. The reasons for using breakout rooms, especially the increased participation and richer interaction,
were both informative ideas for me.
Okay, gotcha. So as you can see, we don't only use games to open things up or in breakout rooms. We can do it actually to debrief the day, kind of keep people interactive as we're doing that. But I'm also going to tell you a little bit about face-to-face purposes. You could also use that there a couple of ways. I know we're looking at some new guidelines as we go into trainings, back into face-to-face trainings slowly. So you could laminate the icebreaker debrief paper and put one on every table. That way you could actually sanitize, wipe them off after they're used, and put dice, and same thing, you could sanitize. But the other thing that you could do is you could do it on a PowerPoint, put this on a PowerPoint. There's a couple of really good dice apps. The one that we recommend that we've used before is random.org, and it will roll the dice for you like on your phone, so you can show everybody what the number is, and then they won't have to touch anything at all, and you don't have to worry about, you know, lots of people touching the dice, that kind of thing, because, you know, as we are trying to stay healthy with training, healthy at work. So just some things to think about. Does anybody have any questions or comments about this debrief? Okay, if not, I'm going to turn it over to Christine.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for participating with those dice breakers. I just wanted to kind of recap a little bit some of the things that we have seen so far. And I know that you were also asked to share, bring any ideas that you have as far as games. So kind of get those ready, whether you want to share those in the chat or whether you want to, in just a moment, unmute yourselves and be able to share. But as far as the breakouts go, I think that, you know, one way that you can certainly use the breakouts, as we kind of modeled, was, you know, hypothetically, if you were doing a training on literacy, that particular activity would be a fabulous way to just kind of activate prior knowledge and just kind of get their head in the game and get thinking about literacy and why it matters and how different people use it in their classroom, as well as, you know, connecting to the other learners and connecting to the content. So that's just kind of a sample of a way to be able to use that breakout. I just want for you, as I'm kind of recapping some of the things, if you have a way that you are planning to move forward and integrate a breakout into one of your trainings, like where in the training plan would you put it, or how would you use that? So I love I made a comment earlier about the collective brain power of this trainer connections community. And I love how you're really kind of sharing your ideas and just really kind of building on the knowledge base of one another. So please feel free to keep that chat pretty active. And then I'm going to sneak a peek at the chat real quick and see if there are any comments related to how you would use the breakouts. I don't quite see any just yet. But yeah, so we've touched base on breakouts, experienced them, and I really want you to think of how you can best utilize those. As far as the dice breaker game, what I love about that, you know, the dice breaker, I mean, it's such a witty, clever title, but you can use that as an opener. You can use that as a closer. You can just modify those questions, you know, for rolling 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or a 5. So it's super, super adaptable, which we all love. You know, we love the low cost, the easy adaptability for those particular items. So be thinking about the questions that you would put on your little dice breaker chart. Like how would you use those? What questions would you ask? I love how for the dice breakers, it was a really good activity for kind of sort of the closing of the training and in helping you reflect on the training and what was a good idea that you heard, or how are you going to use it? Kind of that action planning so you can think of your next steps. And then I just wanted to also see if anybody has any, well, I'm looking at Nikki's comment here. She said she puts breakouts in the middle because it breaks up the training a little bit and gives participants an opportunity to talk about what they're learning. And then maybe again, revisiting at the end. Yeah. Kathy uses her breakouts in agency meetings. Yeah. So I do think, you know, we're all the trainer type people. And I think a lot of our colleagues are tapping into our resources as trainers to really be able to make, you know, meetings, because we're all meeting to death, I think, virtually, to make them more engaging. So that's great to see that we're able to use our adult learning skills broader than just the training venue. Okay. Now, what about the have you ever, that particular activity? There are so many ways to engage your participants. It was the yes, no in the chat. It was the hand smash versus the, you know, stand up, whether it was physically standing up. So depending on where you were in your training, if you were just getting started, or if you didn't really know very many people, just kind of the yes, no in the chat was just kind of simple and easy and maybe low risk for some more introverted people. But then each of those questions got progressively either more active or, I'm going to say, deeper and more reflective. So those are things that you can be aware of as a trainer also. You know, the questions about the training topics related to, you know, the racial injustice, and questions about have you ever attended a protest. Those we were very intentional about putting on a poll that was anonymous, because some people might, you know, want to be very proud to stand up for one of those, and somebody might say, you know what, that's my business, and I don't need to be putting that out in the world. And wherever your learners or participants are at, that's totally fine. So it's nice to be able to give them some flexibility on how they're responding and how public they want their responses to be. So those are kind of some of my personal reflections on some of the activities that we presented and shared with you today. So I'm eager to hear if you have any particular games that you would like to share, and you can unmute yourself or use that reaction of raising your hand. And
Hi.
Oh, go ahead, Dana.
Yeah, thanks. This is Dana from Lincoln County. What I did probably in, I think it was May, with our own staff, I did a bingo Zoom training and sent them PowerPoints so that they could highlight where they were.
Okay, you are freezing a little bit, but yes, so that Zoom bingo.
Yeah, and they would highlight where they were. Would that come through?
They would highlight where they were.
Yeah, so if they had a B or I or whatever. Yeah, so it was fun. It was engaging.
Yeah.
It was good.
There's lots of great possibilities. Anybody else want to share or type in the chat a game or any sort of activity that they've used that they think others might want to try?
One of our teachers surprised us during a PLC with our whole team. We don't just do it with the teachers. And she had prepared a categories game. So she made it pre-pandemic and during pandemic. And it was really funny because we do home visitation through our agency. So it was funny things like something I thought I'd never hear a family say. And then we had the letter that had been rolled, and I mean, we were laughing so hard we could hardly get through the game, but it was so fun just to do something silly, but we all knew the history of it, so it made it fun. And categories was great. It was pretty easy to put together too, because you could use the questions again just with a different letter.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I always love stealing good ideas like that. That's perfect. Thanks for sharing. Anyone else?
Christine, I love to go, free is great, right? So I like to go onto a website. I'll put it here in the chat, trainerbubble.com. It has some free things and then some that are, you have to pay for it. But if you're doing virtual training meaning kind of how we're doing now, we're doing virtual instructor-led training, but you could do e-learning where the person is just interacting with the computer on their own without you. So kind of self-directed, self-paced training. And they have lots of really good e-learning sorts of puzzles that you can put together so that the learner can be interacting with something and not just kind of reading a bunch of text and falling asleep. I saw a study, I wish I could find it and share it, but in these sorts of interactions, they say that you have to think of every 10 minutes to have some sort of interactivity every 10 minutes. So if you think about an hour to really prepare at least 6 things to do within that time frame to keep the person from multitasking, because that's like the biggest risk. You could be doing something completely different, especially if my camera is not on. And then the next thing is Kahoot. So if anybody has ever done this, Kahoot is sort of like Jeopardy, where a participant's cell phone is their game controller, and you just have to plan it in advance to tell people to download the Kahoot app on their phone before they get there, and then it kind of does itself after that. So, and then the last thing that I use is called Poll Everywhere. So if you're going to have a PowerPoint presentation, Poll Everywhere allows you to embed a poll that you've already thought about. So maybe you're going to have 10 questions, and you embed each one of those polls in the presentation. And again, the person has to interact with their phone or online. As they type in responses, your presentation becomes populated in real time with those responses. And then afterwards, you're able to print those out and learn a little bit about your audience. So,
yeah, those are great resources. I marvel at how you can talk and type and put things in the chat all at the same time. You're a Wonder Woman. So
I'm a virtual trainer.
And it looks like we do have some other additional suggestions as and kind of shout outs about people enjoying Bowl Everywhere and Kahoot and some of the others. Yes, so those are great. I did want to let you know, I know we're getting close on time here. So the next training, Trainer Connections, I should say, that we are going to be hosting will be on some of those healthy at training considerations. So we know that this is a very fluid situation, and we know that the recommendations of the governor are, can change from day to day. Presently, you probably have seen a notice that came out on the trainer credential listserv today. Things have shifted to that 1 to 10 with people in the room. So we just want to make sure that we are paying attention to those guidelines as per the governor and honoring those. And hopefully we'll get to a point where we don't have to watch the news every day to find out what's going on as immunizations are available and as we can kind of return to training on a regular basis in the room. However, as we're bridging and making that transition, there are certainly going to be some considerations. And honestly, they may be things that we stick with a little bit longer term as far as having individual items for each of our learners and that kind of thing. But so our topic, if you want to learn more about preparations and considerations on being healthy in the training room as we head back together, that will be coming up. It is going to be in the evening because this time of year we're thinking that a lot of people are making transitions back into hopefully school routines with their own families and with potentially their work in the early childhood field. So we slotted this one for the evening. That's not our norm, but given the time of year, we decided that would be a good pick. So we would love to see you there. Your training coaches will reach out to you and provide you with registration information about a week and a half out from that event. So we hope to see you there. And then, as always, I know that, there were some people asking questions about the breakouts and about some of the other past events that we have done. So just know that we have, every time we do one of these Trainer Connection events, we post resources on the Trainer Connections online community. It's free to join if you have not joined yet. You only have to join once for like all of the content for the Trainer Connections. So if you've already joined, then we will post the resources from this event, including that Dice Breakers instruction sheet. I saw somebody was interested in that. So we'll gather over those resources and post those, as well as a closed captioned recording of our video today. And then you will have access to that in the
And it also will have a discussion board. So like this chat's running with questions and everybody's answering, you can go to that discussion board and say, hey, how did that one lady tell us about Zoom bingo that she did at her meeting? Or who did this categories thing? Can you describe that for me? And you can just have a whole slew of comments in there and keep the dialogue going.
All right. Well, those were that was the information that we had prepared for you today. I'm just kind of keeping an eye on some of these comments in the chat. But in the interim, what I would like you to do, here we are all in the Zoom box. I would like you to give your little neighbors in the Zoom room a little high five for their participation in their work today. High fives all around, up, down, all over. So thank you so very much.
For people in chat, there is no sign-in sheet today. Trainer Connections are developed more for training resources and networking. These are not approved for training hours. So this is just purely an informational networking gathering type setting. So you don't have to do anything else other than what you did. Thank you so much for being here and participating.
So Calvania, if you're not in that Trainers Connection online community, you just register for it just like you would register for one of HDI Learning's online courses, and it's free of charge, but it kind of feels like you're registering for one of the trainings. Thank you for joining, everyone, and feel free to unmute if you have any questions, comments, want to touch base with a coach about something. We'll look forward to seeing you at the next one.
I have a question about the list